It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again. Time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 475. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Here's a little song I wrote.
Grace.
Hello.
Kodra.
Is it a happy ending or a sad ending?
Tam.
We'll see.
And Thalen.
I'm everything and everyone who is or ever was.
I'm clearly missing a reference here.
You are.
You are?
Aside from all of that, I actually had a recent Steam Deck adventure recently.
Oh?
In which I am a coward and chickened out.
Okay.
So the Steam Deck, obviously, perfectly fine device. Comes in a black plastic shell. I like transparent purple, as it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you were going to do a thing.
I, a while ago, got a thing to replace the back half of the shell, but the company that designed this had ideas about how to design things. The fan and a heat spreader are very close inside the back part of the shell. The default case has a like a piece of basically carbon to insulate these so that the back does not heat up and like melt.
Right.
This particular thing had a conductive pad, like a thermal pad, and a metal plate
Oh.
to help with cooling. That is to say, it became extremely hot if you tried to use it for any length of time. So this was dumb. This was like really dumb. So I was in the market for a replacement, basically. Like I could have put the original one back on, but there are plenty of other options for purple backs at this point. And part of what I wanted to do was think about replacing maybe the whole thing. So I got a kit to replace the whole thing. Then I looked up what it takes to replace the front part of the Steam Deck.
Yep.
Yep.
That ain't happening.
Yeah, that was I have also gone down this path because I thought, yeah, it would be kind of cool to have an atomic purple case.
I might do it, but at the present moment, I definitely chickened out and have an atomic purple back that does not conduct heat to my fingers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a plus.
It's just removing the front is a non-trivial process.
It's because nothing comes off of the front. Like, you basically have to disassemble the entire inside, including the screen, which is glued to the front.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure you get good adhesive to put it back. Because, I would not want to assume that if I get it successfully pried off, I won't somehow jack the adhesive up in the process.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption at that point would be the adhesive needs to be replaced.
And at this point, I have a lot of kits for taking things apart. So this came with a suggestion that is wrong as to how to do this. But whatever, I have some experience here. But even then, no, it's just not happening.
Yeah, it's an involved process.
Are you having to remove the screen itself as well?
Yes. In addition to all of the various ribbon cables and delicate things inside, you have to pry the screen off of the front panel.
Yeah, it seems intense.
It is glass. You can break it.
Nope.
Maybe don't.
Oh, glass is adhered to something with an adhesive? I'm out.
Yeah. You're going to have to do it real smoothly if you don't get spider webs all over it. Out.
My general take is that if I have to use a goop at any time, I'm out.
I mean, that's a safe
choice.
bet.
It is also the choice I made at the present time. I may reconsider this choice in the future.
Yeah, I'm hoping whenever a newer model comes out, they make some of the aspects of disassembly a little bit easier.
They have no incentive to do that.
Well, they sell all the replacement parts themselves, so
They do.
I mean, I thought maybe
except the new screen. They don't sell the new screen.
So you have to use an aftermarket screen?
No, because there's not even an available aftermarket screen. You got to send it back to them.
That's even scarier.
Mine is the first model. You can get that screen. They sell it. iFixit sells it.
Yeah. I mean, mine is also a first model, so I've not even taken it apart to replace the hard drive, even though I bought a new hard drive. I've been too lazy.
it is not hard at all to take the back off. So like that part, very easy, very simple. Just think very hard about whether you want to do more than that.
So last week I talked about the Fallout series being exceptionally good, and it has caused a whole series of nostalgic reactions in a bunch of people. Mine started off with originally that, oh, hey, maybe I'll just play Fallout 3 again. And I started playing Fallout 3, and it was not super easy to get up and running, but like I got it up and running, no problem. And quite honestly, like it's aged shockingly well for as old of a game as it is.
Yeah, honestly.
But I also decided, hey, it's been a really long time since I've actually dove back into Fallout 76, so I will play some Fallout 76. And my goodness, have they made a lot of friendly changes to the game.
Yeah, it's a really good game now.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Like level scaling makes sense now, and because like it used to do this weird thing where like when it launched, levels were based on like bands. So like this was like a level 10 area, and this is a level 20 area, and you could kind of screw up and end up in places you shouldn't be. And then they did this thing where like levels were scaled based on the highest person in an area, which could still kind of screw you over. And now it's just like everything is the level that you are, and you perform related to that level, which does kind of cause the weird side effect of low level players sometimes being way stronger in an encounter than high level players.
That's kind of funny.
That is a just general problem of some level scaling system.
Yeah. Like probably my favorite change is that things just drop the ammo you're using whenever you shoot them.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Doesn't matter what it is. You will over sustain your ammunition when you're killing things.
Yeah, also when you open ammo cases and things, when you check them, they have inside what you have been using.
Yeah,
right.
It favors the ammo that you're using, which like isn't
It's
a
brilliant.
thing that I actually super love in base Fallout games, but for Fallout 76 specifically, I think is very good.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's so good. There's also like the community has all these cultural norms, which I am starting to get used to. Like people just start teams all the time, but never do anything together.
Yeah.
Because you get massive XP bonuses.
You get massive XP bonuses, and also you get a reward anytime a member of your team completes a quest. So there is no downside. Like somebody will have created a casual team, you can join it. If for some reason there's not one with a slot open, just make one yourself.
Yeah, and within minutes someone will join your team.
Yep. And
you're given a bonus based on the number of people that are in your team and how long the team's been active. And
So have they fully removed at this point PvP, or does just nobody use it?
There is a checkbox called pacifist mode.
Yes.
And if you check it, you will never ever have to deal with PvP in any form.
That sounds amazing.
I have never seen anybody ever seen anybody like doing PvP apart from going and standing in front of Winter Spring to get somebody to kill you to get rid of your wanted bounty for picking the wrong lock. That's the only thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and like
that's not why
pretty
people
much
are here.
No one uses voice chat.
It's unnecessary.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things that if you see other players, it's just a universally positive thing.
Yeah.
And like it's considered rude to price gouge people, and also people who've been playing the game long enough often have the vendors set up at their camp. So like if you need some ammo or some Rad-X or whatever, just teleport to a team member's, hideout thingy and look at their vendors and see if there's anything that you need. Cause like I have gotten a bunch of plans that way, and it is bizarrely charming. And like
a friend of mine is very, very, very deep into this game, and is like deep enough that we're in like esoteric collector, like trading in alternate currencies for quest items that can be used for decoration in quests that are no longer in the game, so they're like egregiously limited availability. Like that's the kind of esoteric we're talking.
I did hear about this person, had like a item from a quest from like launch, and somebody was like offering multiple like fully upgraded weapons for it.
Like perfect roll, the equivalent of mage bloods.
It was very, very, very interesting, the economy at that point.
Yeah.
Well, and like they've added in a system where you can trade in legendaries that you just randomly get to get, essentially a currency that will let you buy rolls of legendaries. And then there's like a mole man vendor that like sells all kinds of crazy stuff that I stumbled across.
Yeah.
Like the other thing that I find really interesting is apparently like I was doing reading on this because I wanted to understand why these exist, but apparently there were certain chests in the game that players took it upon themselves just to dump newbie stuff in.
Yes.
Specifically the ones out front of Vault 76.
And there was one at the White Spring, and then a couple of the train stations.
Yeah, so now there's just a donation box that's clearly labeled what it is, and I've never gone past it, and it didn't have a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah, because like there's lots of stuff that you pick up that like once you're a fair ways into the game, like plans that you already know, and like random ammo and stuff that I don't need this. Chuck it in the box. Somebody might want it.
Yeah. Well, and like it's an interesting niche because I'm not going to call Fallout 76 like the best supported game ever. And so the community that's still in it is in it because they're very into this specific game. And like they're just happy to have other people to play with for the most part.
Yeah, mostly.
And like it's just fun to run around. Like I've thought about making a new character just so I can go through, what is the experience like now? Because I remember what it was like at launch, but I imagine it's radically different now.
It's changed significantly, especially with when they introduced NPCs, so that a lot of the interest, like because I created this character around the time that they added NPCs, so like I'm on a different path than my original character was. But yeah, like it's been really interesting coming back to it, and it's got that good Bethesda jank, but like it's got some issues. You can there are some weirdness with the level scaling. Like for whatever reason, Mirelurks are just level 30, even though I'm level 21.
I mean, I think in general, creatures do have a minimum level that they're allowed to be at.
Yeah, no, that happened when I dinged 20 because they were my level up to that
and then
point.
When you hit 20,
when I hit 20, they were just suddenly 30, and but they go down like they're level 20. So if I really wanted to abuse it, I could just farm them.
Like levels are not hard to come by in this game. So
no, and I needed 20 so that I could move the main story forward. But also, like, I've been on side quests ever since I dinged and haven't returned to the main story. Also, the pirate radio station is hilarious.
It's very good.
It's basically a bunch of radio serials, but like hyper capitalist radio serials trying to sell board games and, various other things. So basically like every other podcast but ours.
Yep.
We refuse to hit that monetize button.
Nobody wants to pay us to do anything.
Don't like and subscribe. We're afraid of having listeners.
Yes.
We got a comment on last week's podcast. It was weird.
We did? Wow.
Yeah. On
Well,
YouTube.
there's a person who has been listening through our entire backlog, and I believe that's who made the comment.
Hi, person.
Hello.
Yeah, like it's our super fan. Also, like, the same person has apparently been going back through my blog and reading ancient blog posts, and I am so sorry.
Are we sure this person isn't ChatGPT?
I mean, they seem real enough. Like, they actually respond to things, but then again, so does ChatGPT.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Like, I was just talking and then all of a sudden had to cough.
I mean, all of us sort of have that reaction to ChatGPT.
That's
That too.
true.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was a gag reflex. Anyway, but yeah, like, Fallout 76 has been wild, and also right now, if you've got Amazon Prime, they are giving it away. Unfortunately, it's on the Microsoft Store, but
Is it not free to play? I thought it was free to play. I've had it for so long that I don't remember.
I think
don't
it's
think
like
you still
10
need to buy
bucks.
Oh, is it? All right. I don't know.
I did acquire a free copy of it, but I still have not gotten around to installing it because Microsoft Store.
yeah. I mean, basically, they're giving it out on Microsoft Windows Store or on Xbox. I mean, which makes sense, but also it's like the worst storefronts. Xbox Store is fine.
Xbox
but
is fine. If you're gonna play it on Xbox, that is the store.
That is the store, yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah, I guess-
also, like, free Fallout First right now for some period of time.
yeah, for I think a week. I think it's probably ending soon, but yeah, so that gives you access to like a scrap box and a shelter and various things that are very nice to have.
I noticed they completely overhauled the seasonal model.
Yeah, they got rid of the board game like design, and that
I
made a lot of
liked
people
the
real
concept of the board game, but also the board game required you to unlock through a bunch of stuff. So
mad. I mean, yeah,
I mean-
I do like being able to unlock the things that I specifically want, and I can leave the the random gold bullion and things that I don't really need right now for later. I don't know.
I mean, I started by unlocking the not Indiana Jones outfit,
Mhm.
aka Rip Daring.
Yes. But yeah, I'm sad I won't get a cool board game to hang up on my wall at the end of the season. That's my
Like-
main complaint.
That was kind of the coolest aspect, honestly, because it like was legitimately a fully designed board game. But Tam's nostalgia went in a slightly different direction, and you installed Fallout New Vegas. And
I mean,
I'm
that might be a
sorry.
thing we have to discuss when Dan's power comes back.
Oh.
We lost him.
oops, I missed that. Okay, we'll move on. Star Control 3?
We're not allowed to call it that
Star
because
Control
Brad
3 already
Wardell
exists,
is a terrible person. But
Controlling Stars 3.
it's free stars. It's free stars now, which is honestly a terribly generic name, but whatever. But yeah, so like 30 years ago, one of the greatest games ever was made, and that was Star Control 2. And it was
Yup.
beautiful. And ever since then, I have wanted a sequel to that game. And we've never gotten one. Really,
Cough,
we've
cough.
never gotten one. None exist. It's like that. It's like how there's only one Highlander movie. It works like that. Because the two guys that made it, they went off and started like making Spyro, and then they were making Skylanders forever. So they were busy doing that. Star Control 2 ultimately got open sourced and released as the Urquan Masters, and you can go get it and play it now for free, and it's great. You should do it. But so that happened years ago, and they've been saying, so it's like, one day we'd like to do a sequel, and it's finally happening. They have a Kickstarter up now. It is very funded. They've got a number of the stretch goals unlocked. Like they've already done a lot of the work on the game. This is like it seems like basically getting getting buy-in to be able to do some more work on it and add some things that they want to have backing for. So like if we get far enough money, they'll have like full voice acting. That would be nice. But it's Star Control, except we're not allowed to call it that. And it's wonderful, and I wanted to hit all the stretch goals. So
what is Star Control?
What is Star Control? Star Control is, at its core, it is a spaceship versus spaceship combat game. Like that's what the original Star Control 1 was. It was ship versus ship with like a couple of dozen different alien spaceships, each with their own specialties. Not necessarily directly balanced against each other, but you put together teams of them and fight it out. And like the ships are all interesting different ships. Like there's one that's the human ship is very clearly modeled on a Federation spaceship. Like it has a saucer and nacelles and stuff, and it fires photon torpedoes. There's one that's the Mycon are a fungus race, and their ship is just a big globe that flies around and shoots out a projectile that homes in on the opponent and attenuates as it goes further and further. So if you can outrun it, great. Also, if you can manage to get it to loop around and run it back into the Mycon's ship, it'll damage them. And various other ships like that. The Airlu are grays, and they have a flying saucer, and it is incredibly fiddly to play, but very powerful. Star Control 2 took that base and has the same combat as the core, but then put a whole extremely story-driven exploration game around it. The premise of Star Control 2 is that Earth sent a research mission to an alien planet a couple of decades ago. You actually grew up on that alien planet. Like you're the child of some of those original scientists. That research group found a precursor spaceship. That is the unique spaceship that you are flying throughout Star Control 2. It's very powerful, upgradable, very cool. And they ultimately, you captain that ship to go back to Earth, take it back to Earth to try and lend its assistance in the war against the Urquan, which was the big core fight of the first game. Like that was the premise of all those fights. Was there was a race called the Urquan that wanted to enslave the galaxy, and they have a bunch of races that they've already enslaved who are their battle thralls. So they were on the Urquan team, and then the Alliance of Free Stars was, standing against them. And spoilers, the Urquan won that fight. So you get back to Earth and find that it is slave shielded, and the Urquan have taken control of it. There's a space station orbiting it that, is controlled by the Urquan. And it goes from there, basically flying around the galaxy, trying to forge alliances, track down Earth's allies from before the Urquan won and get them back in the fight, find new alien races and befriend or fight them, gather resources to upgrade your main spaceship, and ultimately defeat the Urquan. And also another alien race that's possibly even worse that the Urquan are now fighting. So that was Star Control 2. This game carries on from that. Something is causing hyperspace to stop working properly, and you are going to investigate and, taking your allies with you. And so even more new alien races to meet and befriend or fight. But it's a fantastic game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's completely free. It's completely open source. Star Control 2. Well, the Urquan Masters is the open source version of it, because while Reich and Ford own all of the copyrights and own all of the IP, they do not own the Star Control name. That is owned by Stardock, who bought it from Accolade. No, I'm sorry, who bought it from Atari, who bought it from Accolade. It's a chain, which led to like all sorts of legal issues over the past decade that ultimately came down to Stardock has the Star Control name, but none of the rest of the stuff, and Reich and Ford can do what they want with the actual aliens and things. They just can't use the Star Control name. But yeah, I suggest download the Urquan Masters, give it a try, see if you enjoy it. If you do, consider kicking in for the sequel.
All right. How much has the Urquan Masters aged? I'm guessing this is an old game.
It's a 30-year-old game. It's aged remarkably well, actually. The art and music remain extremely good.
Well, it was very 16-bit era, so it was kind of as good as you could get a 16-bit game to look. It was really pretty.
It's pre extremely polygonal 3D. It's all pixel art, and it's late pixel art. So it is actually very nice to look at, and all the music is pretty quality, Og Vorbis files, good stuff.
I mean, I first played this on the Genesis, and that's the version that I'm most familiar with. Because, it was on various consoles and played extremely well on it.
Yeah, that's actually where I played it first, was on the Genesis. Yeah.
I played the heck out of it on the Genesis.
But yeah, I mean, this is a game that, Mass Effect was directly inspired in many ways by Star Control 2.
Yep.
Now, it is 2D though? It's not 3D. Okay.
No, it is 2D.
Yeah, and it's more of an arcadey kind of thing than
is it schmucky?
Sim. No, not necessarily. It's more asteroids. That's what I would remind
it's Space War is what it is. It's Space War. You're flying around exploring, and when you encounter an alien ship, usually you get to converse with them. And maybe that's not going to go anywhere. Maybe you ran into the Ilrath and they don't want to talk. They just want to murder you because that's what they do. And if you do end up in combat with them, then it goes to a top-down space field with you starting in one corner and the alien ship starting in the other corner. And yeah, you fly around and try and kill each other.
Okay.
And that part is a lot of fun. And that part alone is quite good. But then on top of that, all the alien races are just wonderful. They did a lot of work designing all the races and their ships and making them each unique, and the ships reflect the aliens, to whom they belong.
And there's a pretty good reason to pick any of them.
Yes. There's a definite rock, paper, scissors element to the different ships. Different ships are better against different other ships. If you're fighting the Urquan, their ship, they have a forward gun and they can launch fighters. And when they launch fighters, it uses up some of their crew, which is effectively their health bar, to launch a couple of fighters that then fly towards you and then start flying around you, zapping you with little lasers. And those fighters are incredibly hard to hit with normal weapons and can chew you up very quickly. Unless you are playing, there are a couple of ships that are good against them, but in particular, the human ship has point defense guns.
Ooh.
So the Urquan fighters do well against the humans. But yeah, this is Star Control 2 is one of my all-time favorite games. So the getting a sequel to that, even this many years later, makes me very happy.
So we're revisiting the roguelike rundown.
Yes, because I've been playing some. In particular, I want to talk about two of them. The one I have less to say about is called Anomaly Collapse, which is a sort of tactical roguelike, but it is fairly simple as far as those things go. You have a party of three characters, and you move about on a sort of linear grid, basically just a line, and you can move around to try to avoid attacks, flank opponents, things like that. Your moves are, strangely, not card-based, because it's been a thing for a while.
I was going to say, a roguelike that's not a deck builder? Crazy.
So yeah, it's not a deck builder. The items you find may have active effects or passive effects. Active effects you can use in combat, passive effects that just do a thing for you. And one of the big things there is the resource system, which is split into movement points, which are unique to each character, and action points, which are shared amongst your party. So, like, if a character decides that they don't want to do anything, they can rest for their turn and earn an extra AP, and another character can actually use those. It is interesting. It's got a bit of the Risk of Rain 1 problem, where if you don't like the initial characters, tough luck.
You got to brute force your way through it until you can get to the one you like.
It doesn't take that much. Like, I guess it depends on how well you do, but it doesn't have to take that much for you to get to other characters. But at least starting, if you're not somewhat successful starting out, it might take a while to get to anybody else. They sort of present it as though you have a choice, but really your choice is just who your leader is, because you have stuck with the same first 3 characters regardless. The leader does matter, since they have an effect that takes place either during or after combat, but would have been nice to see a little more variety here.
I have seen the trailer for this. I said it kind of looks like Darkest Dungeon, just because it's all of your characters are on a line.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Darkest Dungeon, though, you're not restricted to all of your characters on one side and all the enemies on the other. Battles tend to start that way, but you can move past enemies. Some characters get significant bonuses for doing so, and sometimes enemies will just rush you, so the whole frontline, backline thing is less of an issue. On the other hand, a different tactical roguelike just hit 1.0. We may have talked about it briefly previously, but I didn't play it, so definitely didn't have much to say about it. Inkbound is the next game from the creators of Monster Train. It is also not a deck builder, although it takes a lot of the ideas from things like Slay the Spire and Monster Train, like telegraphing enemy actions, things like that, for a isometric turn-based tactical game without grid movement.
So it's like free move, kind of like if you were playing a minis game.
Yep.
So kind of like Transistor.
Kind of like Transistor or Baldur's Gate.
That's probably a more relevant comparison.
And the idea here is that you are in the Athenaeum, the place where all stories ever are gathered. But like, the stories are disappearing from the books, so you should go do something about that. The plot's kind of inconsequential, as far as I can tell. I haven't been able to make a lot of sense of it. But the gameplay is a lot of fun. This one provides you quite a wide choice of initial classes, ranging from the one they tell you to start with, which is with a hammer, to a character who dual wields shields.
Is that the bear?
No,
Okay.
This is Inkbound, so they're
right.
not furry themed.
I do like dual wielding shields.
I mean,
That
I think
sounds
that character is
amazing.
very good, and I like playing against them a lot. Like, not really a surprise, maybe. But there is a caster character whose big thing is like using thread abilities, and then based on how many enemies are threaded, their other abilities may do more or less, or things like that. And it's been like, I have not had a ton of success with that character. My most successful characters have been the dual shield wielder and the roguelike character who builds up and shoots a bunch of shuriken. But one of the interesting things about this game, well, 2 interesting things. One is its item system. It has various items that give bonuses, which are pretty much entirely passive, but they all belong to item sets, which have their own passive effects. And if you'd like, you can toss an item into the chipper to lose the item's effect, but gain the set effect twice, basically. So I have an item that is part of the shield set that gives me 5 shield at the start of combat. I can toss it in to lose the 5 shield at the start of combat, gain 2 points toward the shield set, and also free up the item slot for whatever I want next. So managing that, and it's been really interesting. It's part of their item system. And the other thing is that it has co-op, which I have not yet heavily explored. I have seen other people play it, and it seems really interesting, because one of the things that there's the sort of orb mechanic. It gives you extra resources in a turn if you pick it up, and if you're playing with multiple people, you get multiple orbs. So you can possibly either supercharge somebody's turn or spread them out more evenly among the party, depending on what works out for you. And I really want to see more of it. I managed to unlock a class that focuses around tossing an orb around the battlefield, and all the effects are based on that. And while I won, I feel like I didn't understand anything that class was doing, even while I was playing it.
Always fun to have something to go back and look forward to.
And much like Slay the Spire and or Peglin and or most of these other games, as you win runs, you can make things progressively harder. I am keen to try it with other people at some point, but really just overall, it's been quite fun.
Awesome.
So what's this about Ace of Base?
So we talked last week about how Ghost Basket came out, right? for Bluey, and how it definitely shook me. Well, this last week was them doing their 28-minute special called The Sign.
Yep.
The sign in this case being about the moving sign. And boy, that felt like Bluey episodes are 7 minutes. They always feel longer than 7 minutes because they pack a lot into them. That felt like a lot more than 28 minutes.
I mean, not in a that it dragged way or anything.
No, they just packed so much.
There's a lot going on here, and also it felt like it needed to be that long.
Yes,
there wasn't a good place to like cut this story even in half.
I mean, so they clearly they had enough to do that they. I listened to the interview with Joe Brum afterwards. Like they had to do the Ghost Basket because they wanted to go into the episode with everyone understanding that the stakes were that the healers were selling their house.
Right, having it already set up. Yeah. Although they do reestablish that at the beginning of the episode. So one of the nice things about Bluey is you never have to like have watched any other episode to watch any given episode. Like, and that's part of why this needed to be one long episode, was that was the only way for it to be self-contained.
And while that is true, this episode calls back to like probably 15 different episodes with very small details.
Oh, absolutely. There are so many little things that if you have been watching Bluey, there's a lot of places where you'd be like, oh, there's this thing.
Like
there's Greenie. Still up there.
Sure, there's Greenie, but like also for me, so the idea is sort of early on, there's a scene where Bluey is at her school and she asks the teacher why none of the stories ever have sad endings, why they always have a happy ending. And the teacher's like, well, I don't even remember what she says, but
her response is maybe because life gives us enough sad endings.
That's right. Maybe because life gives us enough sad endings. And then she announces to the class that like she's gonna have to move and never see them again, which is very sad and everyone's upset. And so the teacher reads the story of The Farmer and the Horse, which is a Chinese parable apparently first recorded in the 2nd century BC.
Yeah, it's ancient. And it's a very simple, like, that's good. Well, that's bad. It
is a progression of here's a fortunate event, and everyone says, wow, that was a fortunate event, and the farmer says, well, we'll see. And then the fortunate event befalls a misfortunate event, and they're saying, well, that's a misfortunate event, and this farmer says, we'll see, and keeps going on in that cycle. Basically, like, it's important not to bound your view of this story. Mm-hmm. It ends with like a fortunate event with the farmer saying, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the line, well, I don't get it. Is this a happy ending or a sad ending? It's both.
Yeah.
And that is also, that level of mechanism is also played out in the entire show. Like, you have all of these events that one good event leads to an unfortunate event. One unfortunate event leads to a good event.
Yes. And in some cases, a fortunate event that is in part set up by something that happened many, many episodes ago. You don't need to know about that setup, but that element exists too.
Winton's dad got a divorce, and because he got a divorce,
he's lonely.
He's lonely, but he met the terrier's mom, this is an entire event that we get to see in the background of TV Shop.
Yeah.
Like you see him and her approach and start like firing up a conversation. Like, oh, that's a funny like background detail. No, it is in fact very important to the plot of this episode.
Well, so first, simultaneously with what's going on with them selling the house, also Bluey and Bingo's uncle and their godmother are getting married. Rad and Frisky are finally getting married, and that's happening this weekend. And then Frisky decides that no, the wedding's off, and just leaves. And so Chili decides, well, that's not happening. I need to talk to her. And she ends up taking the kids with her, like Bluey and Bingo and Muffin and Socks, to go and find Frisky. And so all of that, lucky, unlucky, that's happening throughout them going to find Frisky. So
Frisky leaves the party, runs away from her wedding, and therefore Bluey gets to sit in the front seat of the car. It's the best day ever.
Yes.
Bluey's sitting in the front seat of the car.
Because so by Queensland law, a child over the age of 4 may sit in the front seat if all of the back seats are taken.
This is an important plot point that is explicitly mentioned in there. And then they get pulled over by the cop who doesn't know this law, which is, of course, an unfortunate event. But then the cop reveals that he gave a ticket to Frisky and knows where he gave it to her, which is an unfortunate event.
And so on and so forth through a series of events, ultimately leading to a sign, which when Chili sees it, she knows exactly where Frisky is, because it's where they used to come to think about things. And it's the Outlook in Brisbane that is a real place and is apparently like quite beautiful. It's the highest point in Brisbane, or the overlook. And so that all that happens, leading you to, ultimately finding Frisky and saving the wedding. And so, maybe that's the entire chain, is like that's what it ultimately leads to, is saving the wedding. Could be. And then the wedding is a lot of fun, and they use dance mode in the reception afterwards. It's very good. But then the chain's not quite over.
The people who have purchased the house go to the lookout, and a coin was jammed into the lookout because Muffin didn't quite understand how it worked. Yeah, which was an unfortunate event.
It was Bluey's lucky coin that she found, and then Muffin jammed it. And when Muffin got it jammed, and they said something about it being unlucky, Bluey's response was, "We'll see," because that's the other thing, is she had basically come to terms with things at that point. She had she had kind of realized the moral of Calypso's story. So the coin is still jammed there.
And then the people who purchased their house come by, use it, and as they are looking through it, see a house that has a pool, which is the one feature that the healer house did not have that they wanted, because their real estate agent lied to them.
Queensland summers aren't that hot.
Oh, yeah, right.
Look, what do you expect from Bucky Dunstan?
What do you expect from Bucky Dunstan? So the moment for me that definitely got me the worst was when we finally realized what's going on with Bingo. So throughout the episode, Bingo is extremely nonchalant about everything. She's like, "Oh, we're selling the house. That's cool.
That's nice.
That's nice.
And she
that
just skips
person's
off.
a nice person. Like we're gonna sell the house. I don't mind that." And Bluey is having a terrible time with it. But throughout the whole series, Bingo's kind of more relaxed than Bluey. So it kind of makes sense, from the audience perspective, that of course Bingo is definitely coping with this news better than Bluey is. And both of the parents think Bingo is coping with the news better than Bluey. Bluey thinks Bingo is coping with the news better. And only when they are moving.
When it's time for the movers to actually get their furniture and start loading it up.
They have sold the house. The movers are moving stuff. They are removing, the desk that Bingo is sitting at. She's like, "What's going on?" It's like, "We sold the house. We're moving out." And she's like, "Do you realize she's 5? She has no concept for what selling a house actually means in real terms to her."
She thought that they were selling it, but they get to keep living there.
Yes. And at this point, she is now having to go through all of the emotional trauma that her sister did, but it's already too late, and there's nothing to be done about it.
Yeah, it's a speed run of the emotions.
Mhm.
And both Bandit and Chili are busy, and it falls to Bluey to be the person who emotionally comforts her sister. This was a moment for me that was like, this felt like the biggest amount of character growth for Bluey to me. Like
Yeah.
throughout the whole season, like throughout the whole series.
Like
And
it's
she's-
Bluey really stepping up and being a big sister and comforting Bingo, and it's wonderful.
It's
And
wonderful.
she does it by telling Bingo the story.
Yes. And then it ends with a absolutely beautiful rendition of the third verse of Lazarus Shrugged by Meg Washington.
Yep. Who is she voices Calypso and also is a fairly like well-known singer songwriter in Australia, has multiple albums. And I have been listening to the album that Lazarus Shrugged is on quite a bit the last couple of days. My wife has been listening to Tortured Poets Department. I have been listening to Bat Flowers. It's a very good album.
Yes. But yeah, ultimately the buyers backed out. And like it's really like Bandit decides to like basically go back on it, like removes the sign from a house. Like the in the kids' idea, like if they can just physically remove the sign, everything will be fine. And like that's like from an adult perspective, you obviously know that's not true. Like it is shown that none of them actually have the power they need. At first, they need to get Aunt Frisky to do it. And that's why they're so gung-ho on finding Aunt Frisky, because Aunt Frisky wants to remove the sign because it's an eyesore for her wedding and she's getting married at the house.
Yeah.
But like they don't realize that. And Aunt Frisky has to tell them like, oh no, I can't actually remove the sign and that'll stop the selling of the house. But Bandit can, because he's the one making the decision to sell the house.
Well,
And
and the whole episode we've seen, it's been very clear from the beginning of the episode that Chili doesn't really want to move. We know the kids don't want to move. Chili is being strong and telling the kids it'll be an adventure to make it okay for them. But it's clear that she doesn't really want to move either. And she does, like, she just straight out admits that, like, partway through the episode when things come to a head. Like, it's Bandit ultimately, deciding for them to move because for a better job, to give his kids a better life. Like, that's his idea. That's what he's wanting to do.
Well, and yeah, and you can tell that he's been like,
and he's been wrestling with it.
He's been wrestling with this for a while, because you see in Stickbird, which is the episode all about Bingo having anxiety, and Bandit just sort of is quietly staring off into the middle distance for like half the episode and not being present and not being with his kids because he's consumed by some anxious thoughts.
Yep.
And so now we know what it is.
Now we know what it was. Yeah. Well, and that was after he had to, go away for 6 weeks for something.
For a dig. We know it was a dig.
Yeah, for a dig, which is very likely what led to the job offer that would force them to move cities. So he saw that as like, it pays better. I'll be able to provide, for my family better. We should do this. And then one of the things that we see in the reason Aunt Frisky ran off was because Uncle Stripe made a comment to her about it. Well, you're not going to be around here long either. You're moving out west with Rad, right? And she didn't know anything about this. And she's not happy about it.
Because Rad hadn't talked to her about it.
And the reason they would be moving out west in part is because Rad has a really good job where he is now. Like he works on an oil rig. He makes a lot of money. And so them ultimately deciding to stay in Brisbane, like he's going to have to find a different job, and it's probably not going to pay as much, but it'll be okay.
Because the important things are taken care of, which is him and Frisky. And so like that, he says that to Bandit, and he says his brother worries too much.
You worry too much.
This is definitely been a controversy for a lot of people, because like ultimately, like not everyone makes that decision. not everyone has the ability to like back out and like say, no, we're not going to move. Some people feel that they had to make those decisions. In the interview, Joe Brum mentions like he wanted to make sure, like he felt that as Calypso said, like his point of view is what Calypso said is there are stories need to have happy endings because life gives you enough sad ones.
That was my feeling. I was pretty sure that was part of his thinking there. So I'm happy to hear that confirmed.
Yeah, it's actually he picked that up from some other person who like mentioned it in a talk that they were giving on like storytelling. It's definitely worth checking out the podcast, Thalen. It's the Gotta Be Done podcast.
Okay, I'll do that. But yeah, because I know a lot of people. My wife is one of them. Like we're of the opinion that when it ended, it like they should have moved. Like that's that was how it should have ended. But I don't know. But my feeling was basically like Calypso said, life gives us enough sad endings. And I think it's important to remember that Bluey is, before anything else, a cartoon for small children.
Yes, that was another point, was like he wanted the small children to have the stability and comfort of Bluey and Bingo Healer always being in that house in Brisbane.
Yeah. Like that comes before anything else. Like,
and he wanted it to be timeless. He wants Bluey to be something that holds up to like the sands of time, basically.
Yeah. Well, and also when Bingo said, "Is Leela coming with us?" No,
oh my
honey.
goodness!
Like that was the moment that for some people they realized, oh, they can't move.
Yes.
Because we've seen the montage of Bingo and Leela growing up together.
It's true.
But also that was heartbreaking.
It was absolutely like ripped my heart out of my chest. Yes. Lazarus Drug is such a wild song to put at the end of a children's show.
So Meg Washington has a little bit of an Amanda Palmer vibe, I feel like. And Lazarus Drug is very much a song about like drugs as a metaphor for love.
Drugs as a metaphor for love, and like yes, like the idea of the becoming one with the universe, and like the whole like psychedelic oneness with the universe being the experience of like and it's very funny because Joe mentions it. He's like he just feels like, yeah, this is the love I feel for my family, and that's why I felt it was very appropriate to use the song. So like.
And it's a beautiful song, and like there's no poop involved, so Disney's not going to have a problem.
It is in fact, yes. There's no scatological references, so it's fine.
But what were you going to say, Belle?
I was going to say, just from a mechanical standpoint, it becomes easier for folks much later watching the show to consume individual episodes if there's not a drastical shift in where their housing is.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing. And again, I feel like one of the things about Bluey is like things do advance over the course of the show. Like there is a timeline, and you see like references to things from previous episodes occasionally, but every episode is self-contained, and ultimately you could sit down and watch any single episode without having seen any other episodes, and it make perfect sense. Like and you don't have to worry about what order they come in, mostly. Really at all.
Yeah, I will say he was in the interview. He was a lot less fussed about having them stay in their house than he was about the decision to have Brandy get a happy ending.
That bothered my wife too.
Yeah,
because it did kind of go against the message of that episode of Onesies. That
yes.
Sometimes you just can't get what you want. It's not meant to be.
Brandy was struggling with infertility. And like she really wanted to have kids. She couldn't have kids. And in the end of the sign, we see that she is pregnant. Which is like, I mean, putting a story about infertility in a kids show was definitely like an intense moment, but I don't know. I am of mixed minds on this. Again, his point was this: we want this to have a happy ending for the kids.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and it does open up like the ability to introduce that new character in the future, and opens up some story possibilities and things like that. So like ultimately I'm okay with it, but I do see my wife's point that it's like that it countermands the previous ending. So
yeah. But I mean, my
but yeah,
take
it
would
should be a happy ending.
It might do that, but it ultimately, that can have its own message, and this can also have its own message.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't countermand the feelings.
Yes, that's true. I'm also very happy that Grandpa Bob is in fact still with us.
Yes.
He was just in India.
He was just in India finding himself. My takeaway is there's some like probably playing a little bit fast and loose. They wanted to get all of the characters back. Why was Mort at the wedding?
I kind of wondered too, but I guess Chili doesn't have that much family. I mean, why was Brandy at the wedding for that matter?
I mean, we have to be clear. Frisky does only have 3 friends.
Yeah, it's true.
It is in fact canonical. Frisky only has 3 friends. It was mentioned in one episode, and you see the 3 friends at the wedding.
Yeah, I'm assuming the other one must have been Cookie, who was presumably her roommate. I don't know.
This felt like this episode was about endings, ultimately. It was the ending to this season. It also felt like an ending to this version of Bluey.
Yeah, because they're taking a hiatus, and it's it's going to be at least a year before we get more Bluey, and
that's not actually true. But I'm trying to keep it a surprise for my kids. There might be a surprise coming.
Oh, well, that's always that's always a possibility, I suppose.
But yes, I imagine whatever Bluey, like, it feels like Bluey is going to be different when it comes back.
I wouldn't be terribly surprised, yeah.
This was apparently their attempt at doing, like, what type of story would we want to tell in a longer form content? Because they are thinking about movie.
I know that he said that he would be up for doing a movie if he has the proper story for it. So yes.
Yeah. Again, you tackle like heavy enough stuff in 7 minutes that I'm like, okay, what is the story you're gonna be telling here?
Yeah.
Because this was a massive story, and it was the ending was both happy and sad. Like, even though it was ridiculously happy, like for the kids, it was still like there was still some melancholy there.
Yeah.
Anyways, I had never heard this story before, and so I'm glad that I now know about this 2nd century Chinese parable thanks to this show.
I had run into it in the past, but I did not know that it was that old.
Anyways, you should watch Bluey. It's really, really good.
It's a delightful show. It's still one of the few shows that my kid gets obsessed with, and I'm perfectly fine with watching the same episode of Bluey over and over for like a week. Like
it has sufficiently like hollowed itself into my head and made me think about it for a solid week.
Most recently he had gotten obsessed with the episode Dragon and had just watched that episode over and over.
Gosh.
So when Bucky Dunstan showed up, I knew exactly who that was.
Yeah.
I do look forward to the possibility of a movie, among other things, so that maybe there will be a movie in theaters that my kid would actually be actively interested in going to see.
I was about to say, did you do theaters for the Mario movie?
We did.
Okay.
And he enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was definitely a good theater movie. Did you guys do Across the Spider-Verse in theater?
We did not.
Okay.
He still has not shown much interest in watching the Spider-Verse movies. It's difficult because he has this habit of when I try to show him a thing, he like actively refuses. So I have to try and be like, mostly what I have to do is I have to, when he's doing something else, like
Do it
start
yourself.
watching a movie and see if maybe he will, get interested and start paying attention to it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Today I watched him up at Treasure Island and he ran off to his room.
That's surreal to me.
Kids are weird.
Well,
Kids
I
are
mean,
weird.
going to the movies is probably not as big of a cultural experience right now as it was for most of us growing up.
I mean, when we were growing up, going to the movies was kind of the closest to on-demand entertainment that you could get. Whereas he can just, watch whatever he wants to on Netflix or Disney Plus, at will.
So last week we talked a little bit about AFK Journey, and this week Grace has played some of it. What are your thoughts?
Not very different from what folks were talking about last week, but I figured I would elaborate a little bit. I've spent a bunch of time playing it. I sort of feel like I don't love it, but I can't stop playing it either. So I don't know. It's incredibly pretty, just incredibly pretty, which is the main thing it has going for it. But I definitely have hit a hard wall with, I mean, and this happens in every free-to-play mobile game where at some point you have to let your currency build up before you can do things. But boy, it happened after about 2 days in this game.
Oh,
Wow.
Where where I was okay, there's lots of things to do and I'm like progressing my quest, and you just hit a point where it's like you have to be this tall to enter, and the only option I have for getting experience other than giving actual money is literally not playing the game. So that was a bummer, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the PvP in this game, because PvP in this sort of game is something that I just avoid in a just visceral sort of way. But I actually find myself enjoying it here. And I think the reason why is engage in PvP means I set up my team. I mean, the baseline arena PvP is I set up a defensive team and it goes off and other people can challenge it. And I can go and challenge other people's teams. They are not actually present and watching the match. It is just, like at separate times. And so that is like totally fine. I set up my little team and it either wins or it doesn't. And it's pretty low stakes. So that feels good to me. And as far as I'm not actually interacting with another human being at all.
Yeah.
But then there's another mode called Honor Duel. And I don't know if it's just temporary or if it's just going to reset in a little while. But this one is a little bit more interactive. It's sort of, you have a whole series of stages, and in between the stages, you earn currency that you can buy more heroes or upgrade equipment or things. And in this PvP, the other person is actually present. You sort of take turns, setting up your heroes on the board. But then, like all the other battles in this game, once the combat starts, like that's it. You don't really have any control over what is happening. And it's great because all of the anxiety and annoyance and rage that comes from engaging in PvP with other humans is just gone. I can hit that button for when it starts and get up and leave the room and not even watch myself get murdered horribly. And whether I win or lose at the end of that match, I will still get the same amount of points to spend in the store to upgrade my guys. So it's great. It just, the penalty for losing is you get less rewards at the end of the series of duels. But
Yeah.
But I don't know. I found it that like one of the most compelling PvP systems in a game like this, just because I don't have to stress out about looking like a complete idiot in front of another human being. And I don't have to pay attention if anyone is trying to yell at me or anything else. Like, it's just all very chill. So I definitely appreciated that. But yeah, bummed that the best way to play this game is to not play this game. Because it's incredibly pretty. And it does have a few different game modes that are reasonably entertaining. But yeah, it's very free to play, and boy, the system for leveling up your heroes requires some obscene number of copies of those heroes, and
Oh yeah.
that immediately sends up giant red flags.
I mean, that's exactly like AFK Arena then, because that was, oh gosh, the number of copies of a character you needed to get them up to even like the penultimate level was rather ludicrous.
Yeah, I've got, I think, one character up to some level, and now it takes 8 more copies to go up to the next rank. Like, I don't know. And it's somewhat easier to get characters because the actual random pull system does let you set up a wish list, so you can kind of at least narrow down slightly per faction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's a specific hero that you just don't want, you can not put them on your list, and so that helps some. But there's still just a lot to choose from. So I don't know. It's that doesn't feel great. The other thing that I didn't realize until I had been playing for a day or two was that there's a whole banner that is like one of the only ways to get some of the higher quality heroes that are I don't know, of a particular faction, that you just can't get any heroes of that faction from the regular banners, and the only way you can pull on this banner is by having pulled 400 times on the other banners.
Ooh, bye.
Yeah. So, I imagine that my run with this game won't last much longer. I'm not intending to give them any actual dollars because the prices of things in the store seem obscene to me. So it is entertaining, but yeah, I think probably not a game for me.
Yeah.
It seems like we're losing our podcast members by attrition.
Something bad is happening on the West Coast.
It seems like it.
Clearly. Yeah, because earlier in the show we lost Tam and we just lost Ash, so that may be a sign to call
here.
it.
Don't draw the universe's attention, Kodra.
Apparently, yeah. So the only other thing that I was going to talk about very briefly was, I don't know what happened this week, but something caused like the market in Path of Exile to crash massively.
Like, everything costs very little.
Yes. Like headhunters are now 10 div.
Weird.
Yeah, so when I geared my character, I made a bunch of decisions that were entirely focused around really wanting to get a Defiance of Destiny, which is this crazy high survival item that you can get.
Is that the one that lets you recoup health when you get stunned?
No, but it basically like recoups up to 42% if you have a perfectly rolled one before you take the damage. So it's bizarre. Yeah, like it's a wild item, and especially on a tanky character, it's made me nigh invulnerable. But like this league, they shifted its rarity to I think it's like a tier 1, maybe tier 0, maybe, I don't know. Like it's on par with like a Mage Blood in rarity, supposedly.
Okay. So
it was like a 55 div item for a marginally rolled one. So that was kind of out of my price range. And then I just happened to be looking at Reddit, and someone was joking about anything less than a 42% one was trash, which led me to look and see what the prices were. And I was able to get an almost perfect one for 14 div. And that's when I noticed that, oh, hey, Squires are a div, Headhunters are 10 div. I have no clue what caused this great crash of prices, but it is definitely a thing. I've always wanted to play around with a Oriath's End, which is a flask that causes things to explode during the effect. And I now have one of those, and it was like, I think it was like 7 div, 6 div, something like that. And normally that's like a 40, 50 div item. I have no clue what happened, but something happened.
Did somebody discover another farming exploit with all flames?
I assume it is something like that.
Probably.
I mean,
or maybe people who've been sitting on a bunch of items decided they were done for the league and started flooding the market. I don't know.
I wonder if our Rogue Exile farmers are cashing out.
That might be exactly what's happening. Because, like, just a slew of super rare items are now super cheap. And, like, Mage Blood still have value, but, like, they're down to, like, 120-ish, which is, I think, what they were during crash of Mage Bloods last league. So, yeah, it's been interesting to see what that happened. And, like, I'm fine with it because now I have some really cool items to play with. It's definitely been a fickle league for everything. And I found out why delve prices were in the basement.
Because people were getting azurite from maps?
Yeah, but like they were getting any of the nodes that gave you extra sulfite from maps, and the all flames that gave you extra sulfite were also giving you just a slew of azurite.
Well, that's because of the thing that gives you azurite when you get sulfite, right?
Right. And like the amount of sulfite you can get is nonsensical because I can run a single map with Nico support on the tree and one of the all flames that gives me mobs on the board that rewards sulfite, and the scarab that like increases my sulfite gains by 150%. And just doing one map will get me from 0 to 65,000 sulfite, which has been great for delving. And I've been able to spend a lot more time down in delve than normal because I can just zoom straight up to full. But also, I guess it had some weird side effects. I hit 99. I might hit 100. I'm not sure. I don't know if I will stick around that long, but I am 99 now, and I don't foresee anything really killing me. I took out Cirrus today to get my next to the last map slot, our favorite map slot, unlocked. I somehow doubt I will do the Feared.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
I'm trying to figure out what other achievement I'm going to go for, because I still have one more to go until I get my sad little totem pole. And that's all I really care about at this point, is getting one of those every league. We have Ash back, though.
Hello.
Yay.
Any final thoughts about anything? It's probably showtime.
Super Adventure Box is back.
Yay. Super Adventure Box is great.
I'm King Toading.
In the realm of furry-based tactical roguelikes, but this one is a deck builder. I did not get nearly enough chance to experiment with this one, so I can't say much. But Cobalt Core is a roguelike that involves spaceship battles and planning out your movement so you don't get completely shot by the other person in an FTL-like setup, except, again, as a deck builder.
Sounds interesting.
If you are so inclined, you can go on Steam right now and request early access to Hades 2, as it's about to start testing. It will not be everyone guaranteed, but at some point, like, they're going to start letting people in.
I mean, if you are a YouTuber, you might be in already.
Yeah, that is entirely possible. Also, the next WoW expansion started its alpha this week. I am not in it. There's some drama regarding the price tag of the 5th Warband Bank tab, which is apparently 2.5 million gold.
I mean, I have no concept of what gold means
I
in
don't
World of
either.
Warcraft anymore, so
I have no clue. I don't know if that's a lot now or if that's not a lot, or I want to say the Brontosaurus looking auctioneer mount from Battle for Azeroth was like 1 million gold. So I would still assume 2.5 million is a lot of money. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
good night.
See you.